Good evening once again from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles. I'm meteorologist Donald Jones with the latest on the potential winter storm that we're expecting to develop across the area on Tuesday, as well as the extreme cold that's already ongoing across most of the area, and that is going to continue pretty much through the entire week. If you've been outside at any point today, you've noticed it's very cold out there, and those very strong winds gusting to 30 miles per hour, have made it feel even colder out there. Now that the sun has gone down, we're seeing those temperatures begin to rapidly fall, and those wind chill values are falling back into the 20s, and we'll be looking at them possibly in the teens by the time we get into late tonight and early tomorrow morning. So dangerously cold conditions expected as early as tonight and continuing throughout the entire week. Right now, it looks like Tuesday night into Wednesday morning is when we're going to see the coldest overall temperatures, and that's going to be partially a result of the snow that we're expecting to fall across the region. We are still looking at significant accumulations of snow expected during the day on Tuesday, essentially from about midnight Tuesday morning through roughly right around sunset or thereabouts Tuesday evening. For the time frame of the snowfall. We're going to talk about that. We'll also talk about all the latest accumulations, which are still fairly significant across all of the region. And then, of course, as always, this is a live interactive briefing, so we'll also answer your weather questions. If you do have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comment section, and we'll answer them just as we wrap up our briefing here. Let me make sure everything's on the up and up here with the audio and all that stuff, and it looks like it is. So let's go ahead and jump into it here. Again, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them just as soon as we're done. Again, temperatures today climbed only into the mid-40s. They are quickly falling now at this hour, and we're expecting temperatures to fall back into the 20s tonight with wind chill values in the teens, because those winds are going to come down a little bit, but they are going to remain elevated through the night. So we're still going to be looking at some fairly decent wind speeds, dropping those temperatures into the teens tonight. That is dangerously cold for anyone who is caught outside improperly exposed, like me, for example, wearing a t-shirt here. That would not work too well outside right now. Same thing as far as animals. Any animals that are unprotected, don't have very thick fur, are going to be at risk of hypothermia from these very cold conditions, and that's going to be the case for the next 4 or 5 days. Unprotected pipes are going to be at risk. So this is going to be the first night where we do want to drip water if your pipes are unprotected and exposed to potential freezing temperatures. It's not the wind chill values that are going to bother that. It's those actual temperatures dropping into the 20s for many hours that's going to pose the risk to freezing pipes. So yes, that will be an issue tonight. I would essentially start running them probably within the next hour or two and keep them running until about mid-morning tomorrow. Agricultural crops and sensitive vegetation, of course, are certainly going to be at risk when we're talking about these hard freezing conditions, and are going to be at risk for the next 4 to 5 days or so. So make sure those are protected if you intend to keep them. We are still looking at a significant amount of winter precipitation, mainly in the form of snow. The overall risk of freezing rain continues to diminish. It's not zero right now, but it's less than 5%. So we're looking at very low probabilities of freezing rain at this point. It's been pretty low for most of the last few days that we've been talking about. It's continuing to diminish. So it looks like the vast majority of precipitation right now is going to fall in the form of snow. We're looking at anywhere between about 3 to 6 inches of snow expected across the region. Some areas are going to see more. I know we're already talking about this range of 3 to 6, but it is not out of the realm of possibility that we could see some areas with 10 plus inches of snow, I should say, in a few locations. There are several computer models hinting at that possibility, so it's certainly within the snow cone of uncertainty, if you will, that some areas could see that much snow. That would be probably the largest amount of snow that has been seen in this area since probably the late 1800s, to kind of put it in perspective. The system that we're kind of comparing this to, for those that were around back then, there was a significant snow event back in 1960. I personally, of course, wasn't around for that, but that is the snow event that we're comparing this one to in terms of accumulation. And of course, there's a lot more infrastructure now than there was in the 60s, so the potential impacts could be a lot more significant than in that event. But that's kind of the proxy that we're using for the potential winter weather and snow with this system. We do now have a winter storm warning in effect. Let me go ahead and make this full screen so you can take a quick look at it here. A winter storm warning means that more than an inch of snow is expected. That's going to lead to significant impacts. Of course, that's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point. The probability of pretty much the entire area seeing at least an inch of snow is very high. So we do have this winter storm warning in effect. It goes from midnight Monday, so essentially Tuesday morning. That should say kind of midnight Tuesday, until midnight Wednesday. So midnight, or say 12:01 Tuesday morning to midnight Wednesday for this winter storm. Roads, overpasses, bridges are likely to become slick, hazardous, and will be subject to being closed. I do expect that there will be some road closures as a result of these significant snow accumulations. So travel is going to be difficult at a minimum and hazardous at the maximum. So I would definitely discourage any kind of travel beginning essentially Tuesday morning around sunrise and through the day Tuesday. Now, any snow that falls is likely to stay on the ground for some period of time. We're not going to be looking at temperatures getting above freezing. If they do, it'll only be for a very short period of time Wednesday. So snow that falls on Tuesday is likely to remain on the ground all day Wednesday, same thing on the roadways, and all Wednesday night and all morning Thursday. We're not really going to get above freezing until sometime Thursday afternoon. That'll be the first opportunity that any of this snow and or ice has to begin to melt. So we're looking at least probably 36 to 48 hours of snow on the ground. And it is possible that areas that see those higher snowfall totals, especially areas that are in the shade, could potentially see snow on the ground all the way through the weekend. So we're looking at a multiple day. I mean, the snow's not going to melt off like, the few events that we have had. Usually the snow melts off pretty quickly. We're not expecting it to melt off quickly in this case. So kind of keep that in mind. We do have now what's called an extreme cold weather watch. Of course, of course it's extremely cold. It's like in the 20s out there. But this one is particularly for Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. This is when we're expecting the coldest temperatures. We're going to be looking at temperatures in the lower teens with wind chill values in the single digits to possibly near zero. So this is by far going to be the coldest night of the week. It's going to be after that snow falls. And the snow is actually going to contribute to the temperatures that are associated with this extreme cold. We're going to talk about the specific temperatures here in just a bit. But that's what an extreme cold weather watch is. This is another product that we're issuing for the first time this year. This is a new product, and this is the actually first time it will be issued if it does wind up being upgraded to a warning, which it likely will. We also still have that cold weather advisory in effect because, of course, it's cold. So you need to be advised that it's cold, hence the cold weather advisory. You are so advised. That's in effect from 6 p.m. tonight. So it's ongoing right now until noon tomorrow. And then again from 6 p.m. tomorrow until 6 p.m. Tuesday. And this will likely be extended likely into Wednesday, possibly Thursday. So there is going to be a lot of cold out there. So consider yourself so advised. This is a look at our latest forecast snow accumulations. This is the graphic I posted on our social media accounts just a little while ago. So again, we're looking at a fairly large swath of 4 to 6 inches along and just to the north of the I-10 corridor, 2 to 3 inches up towards central Louisiana, and 2 to 3 inches right along the immediate coastline. Now, it's important to keep in mind that numbers could be higher than this. It's not out of the realm of possibility. We could see some areas see up to 10 inches of snow. That's not completely unheard of in this kind of situation. Snow accumulation forecasting is incredibly difficult. The range of the potential snow is likely to be very high. Some areas are going to see very little, maybe only an inch or two. Other areas could potentially see up to 10 inches or even more. That's not completely the highest worst case scenario. But generally speaking, there is going to be a pretty sharp cutoff, a pretty sharp gradient for the amount of snow as you get further north. So once we get north of, say right now, it looks like DeRidder to Oakdale to Bunkie, the numbers are going to get significantly lower. And as we get into parts of North Louisiana, very little snowfall, if any, up that way. So again, we are going to be looking at these higher snowfall totals. They could be looking at, again, I'm not a architectural expert, but snow is heavy. And we're going to be looking at a wet snow. So it's going to be potentially quite heavy. And we're going to be looking at several inches potentially falling on trees and, of course, roofs. So there is a risk for roof failures, especially for flat roofs. When we're talking about high snowfall loads, that snowfall is very heavy, so it could potentially result in some roof failures. That's not out of the realm of possibility as we go through this event. Of course, the combination of the strong winds and the weight of that snow on trees will have the potential to bring down tree branches that could cause some power outages. So we are looking at the possibility of power outages across the region. Not everybody is going to lose power, but I do expect that some people will lose power. So everyone should prepare to lose power and to be without power for a period of time. So have an alternative source of staying warm in the event that you lose your electric heater. The fact that everybody's going to be running their heaters quite liberally over the next several days also is going to put a strain on the electrical grid. That in and of itself could cause some blackouts or brownouts. So kind of keep that in mind. So fireplaces, hand warmers, feet warmers, those chemical warmers, those work pretty well. If you have a generator, space heaters, you can run space heaters with that. And then even something as simple as a lot of blankets and or jackets will keep you warm. But have an alternative source of warmth for the potential for those power outages. This is a look at the latest timing. This has been pretty consistent over the last couple of days. We've been looking at roughly about midnight to about 5 p.m. on Tuesday. For the snowfall timing, the highest chance of it occurring is going to be between about 6 a.m. and noon. That's when most of the region will be looking at snowfall. We could see a few snow flurries, especially across southeast Texas, as early as Monday evening, I'm sorry. But the majority of the snowfall is going to be on Tuesday. I've been getting a lot of questions about travel tomorrow. I don't expect any travel impacts during the day tomorrow, and I don't expect any travel impacts tomorrow night through at least midnight. Now, as we get into Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning, 1, 2, 3 a.m., I expect those snow totals begin to accumulate. Travel may become hazardous at that point. But through about midnight, Monday night, I don't expect any kind of travel concerns. Very similar for the precipitation timing across central and southwest Louisiana. Perhaps not quite as likely to see the flurries before midnight Tuesday, but essentially from midnight through roughly about 5 p.m. is when the majority of the snow is going to fall. And we'll be looking at still a few lingering light snow showers possible, especially across parts of south central Louisiana through the late evening hours on Tuesday. But the vast majority of it is going to fall between about midnight and 5 p.m. on Tuesday. This is a look at the latest probabilities of seeing any amount of snow. And again, I said it's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point that the area is going to see some amount. These are the probabilities. We're looking at essentially a 90 to 95% chance across most of the region, a little bit lower further to the north, but we're still looking at 75 to say 90% across parts of central Louisiana. So very, very high probabilities of seeing snow of some amount across the region. This is the probabilities of seeing more than 2 inches of snow. You can see we're looking at anywhere between about 60 to up to 90, 85, 90 percent chance of seeing more than 2 inches of snow. So very high probabilities along the I-10 corridor and even back into to parts of southeast Texas, pretty much most of Jefferson County in that 80+% range of seeing more than 2 inches of snow. This is the probability of seeing more than 4 inches of snow. You can see we're still looking at roughly about a 60 to 80% chance of seeing more than 4 inches of snow across the region. A little bit lower up further north. We're looking at roughly about a 40 to 50% chance up across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas, but still pretty high probabilities of more than 4 inches. This is greater than 6 inches. We have roughly about a 50 to 60% chance of seeing more than 6 inches of snow across the region. Again, a little bit lower up towards central Louisiana and along the immediate coastline, roughly about a 25 to maybe 40% chance up that way. But we're looking at about a 50 to 60% chance along the I-10 corridor. Right along the immediate coastline, again, it's about 25 to 35%. And this is the probability of seeing more than 8 inches of snow, which is still roughly about a 1 in 3 chance across the areas highlighted in red there. So that's along and kind of just to the north of the I-10 corridor. That would include Lake Charles, DeQuincy, over towards Ville Platte, Lafayette. Still looking at about a 30 to 45% chance of seeing more than 4 inches of snow. So that is not a foregone conclusion, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I don't have the graphic here, but there is still about a 20+% chance of seeing more than 10 inches of snow. So that's not out of the realm of possibility either. As far as ice accumulations, these numbers have come down, these probabilities, and we expect them to continue to kind of come down here. We have very low overall threat of ice at this point. This is the probability of seeing any amount of accumulation. You see we're generally less than 10% and only in a few pockets kind of right along the immediate coastline. So the freezing rain probability is low, and it is continuing to get lower with each passing forecast cycle. This is the probability of, I had one more here. Oh, no, I didn't. I guess I took it out. But the probability of seeing more than 1/10 of an inch of ice is even lower than that. It's roughly about 0 at this point. And it's usually about 1/10 of an inch of ice is what's needed to start causing significant ice accumulation issues from freezing rain. All right, let's talk a little bit now about the extreme cold. And then, of course, I'll answer your questions here. I see some of them rolling in here. I'll be happy to answer them just as soon as we run through this. Let's go through the temperatures real quick. So tonight into tomorrow morning, we're going to be looking at low to mid 20s across parts of central Louisiana, mid 20s along the I-10 corridor, and then upper 20s right along the immediate coastline. So we're looking at a hard freeze across most of the region, and this will certainly threaten pipes. So again, we want to run water this evening and tonight, and as late as probably mid to late morning tomorrow until we actually get those temperatures back above freezing. We are going to get above freezing tomorrow, but it's not going to be until probably around noontime or maybe early afternoon. Monday night into Tuesday morning, we're going to be looking at, again, very similar conditions. This is going to be another water running night. We're going to be looking at lower to mid 20s across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas. Mid 20s along the I-10 corridor and upper 20s along the immediate coastline. For Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, this is going to be our coldest night of the week by far. So we're going to be looking at lower teens across most of the area. So we're looking at, you see a lot of 12s there, a lot of 14s, 15s, and then lower 20s right along the immediate coastline. So 20 degrees all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico is certainly possible, and mid to lower teens across most of southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. And once we add those wind chill values, which I'll have for you, I'll show you those in just a second, it's going to feel even colder. We're talking low single digits to pretty close to 0. This is Wednesday night into Thursday. We're actually relatively warmer by a couple of degrees anyway. We're still looking at some teens across the area. And keep that in mind as we go from kind of Tuesday night into Wednesday and then Wednesday through the day. You see temperatures aren't going to rise a whole lot. We're expecting them to stay below freezing pretty much the entire day. So that's why the snow, any snow that falls is not going to melt off. Any ice that develops is not going to melt off Tuesday night, Wednesday, even into Thursday. It's not going to be really until Thursday afternoon where we get any amount above freezing. Going Thursday night into Friday morning, we're going to be looking at relatively warmer temperatures, but we're back in the low to mid 20s, still a hard freeze across the entire area, except right along the immediate coastline where we'll be right at freezing or maybe just a degree or two above. But we're talking about pipe busting temperatures all the way through Friday. We'll have to see how Saturday winds up working out. We may be close to below freezing again on Saturday, but at least through Friday, every night we're going to be running pipe, need to be running water, and having those precautions for those pipes. This graphic just kind of summarizes that. You see the long duration below freezing temperatures beginning Monday night and going all the way through like right around noontime or a little bit thereafter on Thursday. So that is a long duration period of below freezing temperatures, which is going to be a threat to pipes. It's also going to keep any snow accumulation from melting off. Same thing for our central and southwest Louisiana cities. We're also looking at that long duration cold temperature period, and this doesn't even take into account the wind chill factors that are going to be even colder than that. Now, here are our forecast wind chills for tonight into tomorrow morning. You can see we're looking at lower 20s to mid 20s along the I-10 corridor. Same thing all the way down to the coastline, so it is going to feel cold out there. Monday night into Tuesday night, we're going to have wind chill values in the teens. Tuesday night into Wednesday, you can see this is where we're expecting our single digits. We're looking at single digits and very close to 0 in a few locations for those feels like temperatures Tuesday night into Wednesday. That's going to be the coldest night of the week for both temperatures and wind chills. Going into Wednesday night into Thursday, again, back in the teens for those wind chill values. So again, very long duration period of the wind chills at dangerously cold levels in addition to the cold temperatures to go along with it. Same thing for our southwest and central Louisiana cities as well. We are looking at a long duration cold spell beginning essentially now. I mean, it's ongoing already and continuing through at least Thursday. Now, talking just real quickly, this is the last thing I've got. The forecast number of hours expected to be below freezing. We're looking at, for tonight through Tuesday morning, anywhere between 18 to 30 hours below freezing. So it is possible that some areas don't get above freezing tomorrow. If they do, it's not going to be for very long. So especially for areas across central Louisiana, 30 plus hours expected to be below freezing from tonight through Tuesday morning. Roughly 20 along the I-10 corridor, thereabouts, and then 10 to 15 along the immediate coastline. This is pipe busting weather everywhere. As we get into Tuesday, again, this is where we're going to have our longest duration period of below freezing temperatures. We're going to be below freezing for up to 48 hours. We're looking at 42, you see the dark blues there, 42 to 45 hours consecutively below freezing. So we're going to get below freezing and we're going to stay below freezing. This says Thursday morning, but it's more likely going to be Thursday afternoon before we actually get above freezing anywhere across the area. So this is why the snow that falls is going to stay on the ground. It's not going to melt off. And if there are road closures due to snow and or ice, I don't expect that to change much. Now, if salt or treatment is put on the roads, it's possible some of them may be able to reopen, but just waiting for the snow and ice to melt off, we won't be looking at conditions improving until at least Thursday afternoon. So that's what I have here for you this evening from the National Weather Service. We are going to do another one of these briefings here, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So we'll have another one tomorrow morning. We'll likely have another one tomorrow evening to give you all the latest and greatest on that. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to answer your questions here over the next few minutes. So if you do have a question, feel free to post them in our comments section, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. If not, feel free to head out, go enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. I know there's some football on right now. And we'll see you back here tomorrow if you are good. I'm going to go ahead and throw the snow numbers back up there, and I am going to check to see if you have any questions. If you have a question that you posted at the beginning and you're still watching, feel free to throw them back in there. I'm not going to scroll all the way back to the beginning because a lot of people kind of sign off. So we'll just kind of start from roughly about 10 minutes ago or thereabouts. Cassie asked, what will driving conditions be Wednesday? Potentially hazardous. You know, if we're talking 4 to 6 inches of snow as we're seeing, or as we're forecasting, that could potentially shut down, especially bridges and overpasses. But even some roadways that are actually on the ground could potentially be shut down, especially if we do manage to get above freezing for a little while Tuesday afternoon and some of that snow begins to melt and then refreezes as a layer of ice. That would be kind of a really bad scenario. We'll see how that pans out. But if roads are closed Tuesday evening, chances are they're going to stay closed Wednesday and probably Thursday morning too. Joanne says, what do you think roads will be like Friday? I have to go to North Houston for a doctor's appointment. I think that we're going to have Thursday afternoon, we are going to get above freezing for not all day, but for several hours. So I think that will allow some, at least, of the ice and snow to melt off. Whether all of it gets off during that time period remains to be seen. But I think conditions will be improving by Thursday. So Friday is going to be better than, say, Tuesday or Wednesday. Natalie says, wind chills aren't even old enough to go to school. Well, the wind chills Tuesday night into Wednesday morning aren't even old enough to probably go to the potty by themselves. So, because we're talking, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Kathy says, is there any chance of the heaviest amounts moving back to the north like it was a couple of days ago? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if these numbers kind of shift back and forth a little bit. Although the last, say, 2 or 3 runs of our computer models have kept that highest band kind of a little bit further to the south, essentially from Highway 190 to roughly the I-10 corridor. So that's been fairly consistent over the last several model runs. There could be a little bit of shifts here in terms of overall snow accumulations, but I don't expect them to be too dramatic. Tim says, to be clear, you are expecting moist snow and not powdery snow. Well, besides the fact that nobody likes the word moist, yeah, we are expecting a wet snow and not necessarily a powdery snow. In this part of the world, even when we're talking about snow events, there's enough moisture that it's much more likely to be a wet snow than a powdery snow. Ashley's asking about snow accumulations for snow or ice in Newton. For Newton, you're kind of right on the border here between the 2 and 3 and 3 and 4. So we'll say 2 to 4 inches across the Newton area. We're not expecting any kind of freezing rain ice accumulation. We could see some sleet, but we're not expecting freezing rain up that way. Andrew asks, will we have blizzard conditions on Tuesday? How reduced will the visibility be? We can't predict exactly how heavy the snow is because that's what determines what the visibilities will be. I'm not completely ruling it out because we are going to have wind gusts of 30 plus miles an hour. I don't think it's particularly likely at this point, but as we say, there's a non-zero chance of having blizzard conditions. To have blizzard conditions, you need 35 plus mile an hour winds. You need heavy snow that's reducing the visibility to a quarter mile or less. We're certainly going to be close on the winds. I'm not sure we're going to have snow falling that heavy to reduce visibilities that low. Kelsey says, when the snow starts to melt off, if the temperatures are still below freezing, will that melted snow freeze? Yeah, if there's still water and we drop back below freezing, then yeah, that will freeze. That will be most likely possibly Thursday afternoon when we get back above freezing for a significant amount of time. If we get above freezing Wednesday, it's not going to be very long, so there's not going to be much time for snow to melt off. But yes, if there is still water melted from snow, it will refreeze once we drop back below freezing. Jamie says, I have a doctor's appointment at 9 a.m. So everybody's got a doctor's appointment. That's okay. It's good to be healthy. At 9 a.m. tomorrow in Sulphur, my daughter is coming from Moss Bluff. Will she be safe? We're not expecting any snow tomorrow, not until maybe late tomorrow night. So yeah, there's no road issues. There's not going to be any snow concerns during the day tomorrow. Ashley asks, when will the snow start to melt? Right now, it looks like Thursday afternoon is going to be the first time that we're going to spend any appreciable amount of time above freezing. So that's what I'm thinking. Any snow that falls on Tuesday is likely to stay all day Wednesday night, Thursday morning. I think it starts to melt off by Thursday afternoon, although it could potentially linger depending on how much we get all the way through at least the first half of the weekend. Rebecca asks, what about driving conditions on bridges with metal grating in the morning? If you're talking about tomorrow morning, no problems. If you're talking about Tuesday morning, if it's all snow, it'll probably fall through metal gratings, but the entire bridge isn't necessarily made out of metal gratings, most likely. So there could be some accumulation that leads to some ice on grating with bridges. And then if that does happen, Wednesday is... we're not going to get above freezing, so it'll probably stick around with those hazards through Wednesday. Spencer 6898 asks, will we see a lot of wind? Yes, we are expecting to see some windy conditions. We've got wind going on out there right now. It's going to be windy tomorrow. It's going to be windy on Tuesday as the snow is falling. So we're looking at gusts up to possibly 30 miles an hour as the snow is falling. That's why we were talking about a little bit ago about the possibility of getting close to blizzard conditions, because the snow will be falling. It'll also be blowing because we're looking at 30 plus mile an hour winds. Natalie asks if I can arrest Elsa for causing this. I mean, seriously, I am not a law enforcement officer. I have no arresting authority whatsoever. So, nope, I cannot. Sheila asks, is there something in place for the seniors who live alone and their power goes out? There are warming shelters that are being opened. But my advice is to check on said seniors if their power goes out, or to see if their power has gone out and be able to offer shelter to them yourself if you know them or if you have any kind of affection for them. That's why we always say check on the elderly, check on the infirmed, anyone who may need additional assistance in the event of power outages, because I do expect there will be some sporadic power outages with this event. I had a coworker making faces at me through the window. Sarah asks if we are asked if we don't have problems, or if we didn't have problems in 2021 with our pipes, do you think we will have problems this time? I'm super nervous. From a temperature perspective, it's going to be actually fairly similar to what we saw in 2021. So if you didn't have any problems then, I'd say you're probably going to be okay this time around, unless your insulation issues or insulation has changed between now and then. But the temperatures are going to be fairly similar to what we saw in 2021. Marlene asks, is there a chance it won't be as bad? I'm asking for a friend. There's a chance, but at the same time, this has been actually remarkably consistent considering the part of the world we live in and the relatively extreme nature of the snowfall amounts that we're talking about here. The computer models have been in remarkably good agreement and continue to be so. So I think there's a high probability that what we see either behind me or something similar to it is going to develop on Tuesday. Crystal asks, what does this do for our chances of a good crawfish boil? In general, from what I understand, crawfish rather dislike cold temperatures. They tend to burrow down into the mud. So that's probably where they're heading to try to stay warm. So I anticipate that the catch will probably be significantly reduced for at least a couple of weeks. But long term, I don't necessarily know that it's going to have any long term impacts. You'd have to ask a crawfish farmer for specifics on that. Note Poser says, do you expect the I-10 Lake Charles Bridge to be accessible on Thursday? Possibly not Thursday morning, maybe by Thursday afternoon. We'll see. Again, I'm not an expert on road closures. There's a whole lot of question marks as to what could or could not keep roads closed. You know, how much ice and or snow are we going to get? What exactly the temperatures are, whether those roads have been pre-treated or not, whether they're treated after the snow falls. There's a lot of things that I don't know there to make that determination, so I can't really answer that with any degree of certainty. Brittany says she's from Alaska, so this is nothing for me, but you're excited to have snow and you have all the right gear. You're probably wondering why we're all freaking out around here. It's because we don't get this very often, especially these numbers. I haven't seen these numbers in my career of 16 years. And if this pans out, nobody in this area has seen these numbers probably since 1960. So we don't really get this kind of weather around here. Andrea says, crawfish lives matter. They do. As long as they're in my pot and eventually in my stomach, they matter. Dane's also asking about blizzard warnings. If we get to blizzard conditions, we'll put out a blizzard warning. Again, I don't think that's particularly likely at this point, but we are going to be getting relatively close to it. We're going to have wind gusts of 30 plus miles an hour, and we will be looking at snow. Whether that snow reduces the visibilities enough to warrant a blizzard warning, that remains to be seen. But if those conditions look like they're materializing, then yes, we will issue a blizzard warning, which might be a first for this Weather Service office. Beatrice asked, should we worry about freezing precipitation on power lines that could possibly cause power outages? The probability of freezing rain right now is very low, and it continues to get lower. I'll show you the probability graphic here. So that is the probability of seeing any amount of ice accumulation. You can see it's essentially along and south of the I-10 corridor, and it's roughly less than 10% at this point. Now, this has been fluctuating a little bit over the last couple of days, but the probabilities are very low for seeing freezing rain with this event. Mr. Jeff Jones says, Cousin Donald, we're not really cousins, but we're all cousins too. What do you think the chances are that flights will be canceled on Wednesday at Lake Charles? That's another question that I can't really answer with any degree of certainty, because just like with roads, airport runways have the potential to freeze over. Now, most airports have the ability to deal with that. They have anti-icing agents. and pre-treatments that they can put on the runways to try to prevent that. I don't know specifically which particular airports, or here at Lake Charles Airport, I'm not sure what kind of, if they have that available, and if they do they have the manpower to put it out? I'm not 100% certain on that. The aircraft themselves, you can de-ice an aircraft. That's not an issue. It's the runways that we have to be concerned with. But again, exactly how much falls, whether that's ice, exactly what the temperatures are and how quickly that melts off, all questions that I don't have exact answers to right now, so I can't say for certain. But I will say it is a possibility. Let's leave it at that. So if you have the opportunity or the ability to change flights to later in the week, I'd probably recommend doing so. Alice said, did I hear you say we were going to have snow in Grand Lake? You heard me right. We are going to have snow in Grand Lake. Who would have thought we'd see the day for that? Yeah, we're looking at roughly about 2 to 3-ish inches of snow being expected or being forecast for Grand Lake. Leilani says, are we still naming our snowman? Ours is going to be Mr. Snow Dude. We can. Yeah, let's name our snowman. We haven't made him yet, but we can name him by all means. Crystal's asking again, are we expecting I-10 and 210 to close down on Tuesday? Again, I can't say for sure, but I will say it's a possibility. If we get any kind of significant ice or snowpack accumulations to where that becomes slick or hazardous, they will shut them down. It's not a guarantee, but it is a possibility. Keisha asked about thoughts on school Friday. I have no thoughts on school Friday because I don't make those kind of decisions. We provide the same information I'm providing to you. We provide to the school board officials, and they make those determinations on their own based on their own criteria. From what I'm seeing right now, again, Thursday afternoon, we are going to see snow and ice begin to melt off. Whether it melts off of roadways completely, we'll have to wait and see. And I'm sure they're probably going to take a wait and see approach as well. A couple of people asking, is it better to drip cold water or hot water? You usually want to do a little bit of both. But again, a very thin stream. You don't want to, we're not turning the water on wide blast here. A very thin stream, because a lot of houses have both cold and hot water pipes, and both are usually separate and they're susceptible to freezing. So usually you want to do a little bit of both. Shelby said, so I heard you say if you did not have any problems in 21 with piping, what about power? Because I did not have any problems in 21 with power, and with it being wet snow is more of a concern for power lines. So what you have to keep in mind is that that was a different event. There was more ice in 2021. And as far as temperatures, they were similar. But as far as the winter precipitation goes, they're going to be different. I hate in talking about impacts as it relates to different events. But yeah, generally speaking, we're going to be looking at very similar temperatures in this week as we saw in 2021. So I can't promise you that if you didn't have problems in 2021, that you're not going to have problems this time. But in general, yeah, that because we're going to be looking at similar temperatures, as long as your insulation is still the same and you're doing the exact same things, you're probably going to be okay. From a power outage perspective, we're expecting much more accumulation of snow with this event than we had in 2021. So that could potentially lead to some power outages. And just because you don't necessarily lose power in one event doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a little bit more snow and or ice with this event that could lead to power outages. That particular tree branch that falls on the power line and causes your power to go out may not have been there 4 or 5 years ago. So I can't. That's not something we can compare. We can't say because you didn't lose power in 2021, you're not going to lose power this time. That's not a fair comparison. Buffy asks, will traveling home tomorrow evening be safe? Yes, you should have no problems tomorrow evening. We're not expecting any kind of road hazards really until early Tuesday morning or after midnight Monday night. Chris is asking, what about the 171 bridge? Will it be closed down possibly before 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning? I can't say for certain. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty there and a lot of variables that I can't offer a good answer for you for that, other than to say that it's possible. Kelly says, I'm from near Cleveland and I'm excited to see the snow. At least I don't have to drive/shovel and get stuck in it. I don't think any of us that have spent a long time down here have snow shovels. So that'll be interesting. Keisha's also asking about the I-10-210 bridges. Again, I can't tell you for certain. Again, it's going to be possible that we will see bridges and overpasses shut down, but exactly when that's going to happen, I can't say with any kind of certainty. Kay asks, what's going to be the name of your snowman? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it yet. Maybe what about my house? That's everybody's question. So maybe I'll name him Captain What About My House. Belkis asks, how many inches in St. Mary Parish? Right now, we're going to be looking at 2 to 3 inches down in St. Mary Parish, which again that's a lot, especially in a forecast for right along the coastline. But yeah, we're looking at forecast right now, 2 to 3 inches in St. Mary Parish. Spencer asks, will we see snow squall warnings? Probably not. I don't know that this is necessarily going to come in the form of a squall. I think we're more likely to see blizzard warnings than snow squall warnings. Again, another product that I don't think this office has ever issued. Jennifer asks, is Reeves in the area showing a possible 8 inches in southwest Allen Parish? Right now, our official forecast is 4 to 6, but I'm not ruling out the possibility of up to 8. That's certainly reasonable. Just like we talk about our locally higher amounts when we're talking about rainfall, same thing applies to snow. There are going to be some areas that are going to see higher than what you see behind me, and there are going to be some areas that see lower. So yeah, 8 inches is not out of the realm of possibility. I think the probabilities I had were roughly about a 30 to 40% chance of more than 8 inches. Shadow Gaming Reviews asking, you drip outside faucets to keep them from freezing? Yes, but the problem you're going to have is now you've got water all over the ground where you're dripping it, and all of that's going to freeze. So you've basically made yourself an ice rink out there. So I wouldn't recommend that. Nephiteria asks, do you expect power outages in Lake Charles? I'm just getting on. It's possible. I do expect there to be some power outages across the area. Whether your particular neighborhood loses power, I can't say for certain. Not everybody is going to lose power, but I do think some people are going to lose power. Derek asked, what time is it coming our way? I can pull our timing graphic back up here. Let me make this full screen for you. There it is. So we're going to be looking at generally between about midnight and 5 p.m. Tuesday. That's going to be when the vast majority of the potential snow is going to be. And that's showing the southeast Texas cities, but it's going to be the same for southwest Louisiana. There are our Louisiana cities. Courtney asks, any risk of snow causing issues with roofs? I saw another said roof could collapse due to weight of snow, and that seems extreme. No, they're right that is going to be a possibility. That is going to be largely dependent on the shape of your roof, exactly how much snow falls, the exact weight of that snow, and then the architectural of your house, or the architectural build of your house, I should say. So yeah, there's a lot of unknowns there, but it is going to be a possibility. It's called snow load. It is a real thing. I don't have the architectural background to offer a specific forecast regarding that, but and plus it's going to be different for everybody's individual circumstances. Flat roofs are going to be more at risk than sloped roofs. So mobile homes, trailers, those are going to be a little bit more susceptible. But yeah, roof collapse due to high snow amounts is going to be a risk. It looks like, especially in areas that see those higher amounts. We see 8+ inches, that could become an issue. I went away and come back. Edward says, 2 guys walk into a bar and one of them orders the Donald Jones. That person's going to have a bad time, because remember, anytime you see me, bad things are happening. I don't come out here and talk to you for nice weather and clear skies. Brandy says, someone said this will be fluffy type snow instead of our hard grapple-like. Yeah, there may be some sleet mixed in. That's really hard to predict. But I think the majority of snow is going to be actual pure snow. So that will be the soft, fluffy type. Neferteria asks, how many inches in the Lake Charles area? Right now, we are looking at, our forecast is for 4 to 6 inches in the Lake Charles area. You can see that behind me. I'll make this full screen for you. So there it is. So looking at 4 to 6 inches right now being forecast in the Lake Charles area. Lil Ray says, read my comment. I have read your comment. Your comment hath been read. I live to serve. Shadow Gaming Review says, I'm not super worried about water under the faucet. I just wanted to know, is it safe? Yeah, it's generally safe to run outdoor faucets. It's just, like I said, any of that water that falls out of it is going to freeze. Lisa asks, what is the best technique to build a snowman? I don't know, Lisa. I'm from down here too, so I don't deal with snow a whole lot, so I don't have a lot of experience building snowmen. You'd have to ask our Cleveland friend or our Alaska friend that was on here earlier. Nicole says, I'm late. What did I miss? Nothing, Nicole. You're fine. Don't worry about it. It's just nothing. It's going to be fine. If you see the white stuff falling from the sky on Tuesday, just carry on. No, I'm just kidding. If you missed it, you can actually rewind and go back and view the briefing from the beginning. It will also be available as a recording here just as soon as we wrap up our briefing. Darren asked, do you know when they could start closing the bridges down and the Neches River Bridge to close? Again, I can't talk exactly when I expect roads to close because there's too many variables to make those kind of estimates, other than to say that there is the possibility that roads could be closed. Trina says, this is unbelievable. I hear it, but I just can't imagine it's happening. You know, I've had to do a reality check myself a couple of times here over the last couple of days, because just from a forecast perspective, this is not something that we've ever done before. We've never put these kind of numbers in a snowfall forecast in this part of the world before. So yeah, it's a whole different thing that we're dealing with right now. Angie asks, will roads still be okay for people getting off at 11 p.m. Monday night? Yes, I don't expect there's going to be any road impacts on Monday. We're not going to see road impacts until Tuesday sometime if we see them. Cookie Death asks, which is not a bad way to go, by the way, Cookie Death. What is the worst case scenario if it overperforms? 10 to 12 inches is not completely out of the realm of possibility. We use what we call the 90th percentile or the 10% exceedance. That's statistics. Don't worry about it. The point is that when we use the top 90% of computer models or the bottom 90% of computer models as our reasonable worst case scenario, and that's showing between about 10 to 12 inches. That would kind of be our worst case scenario for this event. James asks, is there a possibility the heaviest snow accumulations could shift back northward? Yeah, we could see, you know, it might not be a shift, it might be an expansion. It doesn't necessarily have to be a shift by itself. Again, snowfall forecasting, exact snowfall accumulation forecasting is very tricky and very difficult, and there's a lot of variables that go into it. So don't take behind me for 100% gospel. There's likely to be some changes here, and this is likely not going to pan out exactly as it's being shown here. So, for example, Alexandria, we're currently showing 1 to 2 inches up that way. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that area got 4 inches of snow out of this, just because of the very difficult nature of pinpointing those kind of accumulations. So, just because you see these numbers on here, don't be surprised if they are, in some cases, higher or lower than what we're actually being forecasted here. We're not God. We are not perfect. And especially when it comes to snowfall amounts, there's a whole lot of variables that are difficult to account for. The bottom line here, and the most important thing I want you to take away, is that we're going to be looking at a fairly significant snowfall, potentially the most we've seen in our lifetimes in this part of the world. Alex says, I go up to Alaska in June of last year. I don't see snow, but when I'm home to the 409 and Mother Nature decides to throw me a modern record-breaking snowstorm. That's just how Mother Nature is sometimes. Huh? You never quite know. Little Texas Tornado asked, do you think it could come in faster on Monday? We've been and computer models have been very consistent on the timing being extremely late Monday night, but most likely after midnight Monday into Tuesday through about 5 p.m. Tuesday. This has been very consistent, and I expect that to pretty much remain the case. So no, I don't expect much in the way of snowfall on Monday. Not ruling out a few flurries, but the vast majority of it is going to be after midnight and into Tuesday. B. Patterson asks, should it be an exception to the rules of the road that those who have never driven in snow turn on their hazard lights? Hazard lights are generally not a good idea in general, but if you want to turn on low beam headlights, that's acceptable. That would be perfectly reasonable. That just helps with visibility. It helps other drivers see you. It's probably not going to do much for you during the day in terms of you seeing better, but it'll help other drivers see you better. Stacy asks, what is the reason we're having this rare event? Well, we've got this very cold air mass that's moved into the area today, and then we have an area of low pressure that's developing over the northern Gulf of Mexico and moving across, and that's going to bring us a lot of moisture over the top of that very cold air mass. So the combination of those two things is what's kind of leading to this event. Gay asks, is it more difficult to get snowfall estimates versus rain? Yes. And rain is hard, very hard as it is, but even more so with snow, because you have different variables when it comes to snow. Besides the usual where are the bands going to set up, you also have the type of crystals that the snow is made out of. Some are thicker and some are thinner than others, and some take up more space and less space. So depending on that, and that depends on the exact moisture and temperature where the snow crystals form, you could have a significantly thicker or thinner snow with the exact same amount of water content in it. So that makes snow forecasting and snow accumulation even more difficult. Jessica asked, do you have a model that you typically favor? No, I don't use a single model for any purpose. We use what's called an ensembling approach, where we look at a bunch of different computer models, we kind of blend them all together, and then we look for patterns within them. So no, there's not a single model that I favor, and there's not a single model that I ever use by itself. Joetta asked, would you please explain what conditions freezing rain brings versus snow? Freezing rain is essentially, it's liquid water that is below freezing. So what happens is when it hits the ground or hits anything, it immediately freezes on contact, because the circular nature of a raindrop allows it to actually be liquid even though it's freezing. That's due to its physical components. But when that circular parameter breaks and it splatters everywhere, now that circular component is broken, you have water that's below freezing, so it immediately freezes on whatever it touches. That's what freezing rain does. And when that happens, you get a buildup of sheets of ice, or a glaze of ice, or icicles. That's very heavy. And it's also very slick. It causes a lot more road issues because it's a layer of ice, as opposed to snow, which is made out of little crystals, which even though it's frozen, it actually has a lot of friction. You can drive over pure snow without any problems, because the snow is, I mean, if you rub it together, it has friction. It's not like ice where it's very smooth. It's going to fight back against you a little bit. So snow usually in general has less impacts in terms of road hazards. It doesn't accumulate as much on trees and power lines, although it can, especially if the winds aren't blowing really hard. You know, it falls on leaves and accumulates and branches and such. You know, it builds up on everything, but not in the same way that a layer or a sheet of ice would from freezing rain. So freezing rain is actually the more dangerous of the two. Deanna asks, will we have snow thunder or a snow thunderstorm? I think you mean thunder snow. That is a rare entity, even in places where it snows frequently. So I'm not going to say that's a pretty low probability. It's never impossible, but we're not forecasting that. And if it does happen, consider yourself very, very lucky. You might want to go buy a lottery ticket at that point, because it is a very rare occurrence, even in areas that snow frequently, let alone areas like here where it doesn't snow ever hardly at all. Terry's asking, are there any snow bursts possible? Yeah, that's not out of the realm of possibility. We're not expecting a uniform amount of snow. A snowburst is essentially where you get a period of very heavy snow falling quickly over an area. And that is a possibility. Again, we're not expecting a uniform amount of snow. You know, this graphic behind me looks nice and pretty. It's very uniform, showing a swath of 4 to 6 inches. That's not reality. Some areas are going to see significantly more than that. Some are going to see significant less. So yeah, snowburst, there could be a few snowbursts kind of mixed in there, and that could quickly accumulate a lot more snow totals than an area just a few miles down the road. Wyatt asks, is this going to be a wet or dry snow? We think this is going to be a wet snow. You know, even though we are very cold, we still have a comparably lot of humidity and moisture in the air. And the fact that this low pressure system is bringing all this moisture in means that there's going to be a lot of moisture available. So we do expect this is going to be a wet snow. The difference is, and I know it sounds kind of weird, wet versus dry, and this is what we were talking about earlier. The same amount of snow accumulation. Say I have 1 inch in this hand and 1 inch in this hand. You could melt that down and have two completely different amounts of water content, depending on exactly how the ice crystals form that make up that snow. So in one hand, you may have 1 inch of snow that yields 1/10 of an inch of water. And then in the other hand, you may have 1 inch of snow that yields a 1/100th of an inch of water. So that's what we mean by wet and dry. The more water content that is being held in the snow, the heavier the snow is. So in this case, we do expect a heavier snow, a wetter snow. That tends to be better for clumping together, making snowballs, snowmen, and the like. Whereas a drier snow is more kind of like powder. It's very, very, very thin and wispy, and it doesn't hold together very well. Katie asks, when do you think the airport will be back to operational for flights to come in and out? Well, that depends if it goes down at all to begin with. But I think conditions from a ice and snow perspective will begin to improve by Thursday afternoon. Natalie says, hypothetically, if we leave full water bottles or sodas in someone's car, could they explode? Sodas, they're going to freeze first, but then they're not going to explode so much as they're probably going to crack. If you think about it, when an enclosed space cools, and this gets into thermodynamics, which is meteorology and also physics. When temperature cools, pressure tends to lower. But it's also the liquid inside is going to freeze. So it's going to freeze and potentially crack as it begins to work inward. So you still may have a mess on your hands once it actually dissolves, but it's not likely to explode so much as it is just kind of crack. Same thing if you put, say, a Coke in the freezer, for example. The same process applies. It's going to freeze, and then it's going to crack open. And then when it melts, you got a mess on your hands. Rebecca says, this is Meteorology 101. Yep. I'll be here all week. We'll get our basic degree in snow. Not things that I talk about very often. Shanna says, I'm coming from Lafayette, heading to Lake Charles Monday night, about midnight. Think we can make it before it gets too bad? Yes, I think, Monday night, you're going to be fine. Even if we do start to see some snow falling right after midnight, I don't expect there's going to be significant road hazards immediately. It's going to take some time for that snowfall to accumulate and build up. So late Monday night, very early Tuesday morning, I think you're going to be okay. Susan asked, does being very near water like a river would bring more snow? Not so much a river, although I guess it's possible. Being near a lake, you can sometimes get what's called lake effect snow. That's essentially when very cold air moves over the relatively warmer waters of a lake or potentially river. The water then evaporates into that and pushes and basically develops heavy snow that moves downwind of that lake. We actually did see that on Toledo Bend a few years ago. I think it was the 2021 event where we did see some lake effect snow off of Toledo Bend. That's much more common up in the Great Lakes regions. The Great Lakes are notorious for producing lake effect snow that can dump feet of snow. And that actually happened, I think, earlier this year on Long Lake, I think it was Lake Erie. Dumped just feet and feet of snow. That's why Buffalo is always usually so snowy. Buffalo, New York, they're right along the lake. You get the wind in just the right direction, then you get a copious amounts of snow. Now, it's usually a very narrow swath because the lake is very narrow, so you're only going to get that evaporation within the lake, and then it moves downstream from that and falls back out again. So it's a very narrow swath of very heavy snow. Do I expect that in this case? The winds would have to be just right for it, and I don't know that they're going to be. We'll have to take a wait and see approach for that. The moisture from the main line of storms is going to be coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. But could we see some lake effect snow out of Toledo Bend or any of the other lakes? I wouldn't say it's completely out of the realm of possibility. We'll just have to see how things evolve. Marissa says, will 210 and I-10 be closed for Lake Charles from Sulphur and back? When and for how long? I can't say the answer to any of those questions. I don't know for certain whether it's going to close. There is a possibility. And if it does close, I can't tell you exactly how long it's going to be closed. That's going to depend on how much snow or ice we get. That's going to depend on what kind, if any, pre-treatments that are put on. That's going to depend on whether they treat the bridges after the snow falls. That's going to depend on the exact temperature and how long above freezing we get. So there are a lot of variables there that I just can't answer. I can't answer that question with any certainty. Unfortunately, I know I've been getting that question all night. A lot of people are asking it, but I just can't say, not just for the bridges, but also any roadways. I can't tell you for certain in advance that they will be closed, and I can't tell you for certain in advance how long they'll be closed. All right, I think I've reached the bottom of my list here, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up our briefing here. We've been going for over an hour. If you have a question that I missed for some reason, feel free to send us a direct message on Facebook. I'll be happy to answer your questions. My email is also on the screen there. It's my name with a dot in the middle, so donald.jones@noaa.gov. You can send me a question that way. I'll be happy to answer it. You can give us a call here at our Weather Service office. Number is also on your screen, area code 337-477-5285. You can also message us on X. You can message us on Instagram. So lots of different ways to get in touch with us if you do have a question about the upcoming snow event or the extreme cold. Our next briefing will be tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And then we will likely do another one of these briefings tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. to have all the latest and greatest for you at that time. Everyone stay cold or stay warm tonight. Don't stay cold tonight. Stay warm tonight. We are running faucets tonight because we are going to be spending a long duration period below freezing, and the same thing for the next several nights. So preparations should be completed, and we are now in the hunkering down phase from the cold perspective for precautions from the cold. And then as we get into late tomorrow night into Tuesday, we'll be talking about the onset of what may be not a record-breaking snow, but certainly a historic snowstorm from perspective in this part of the world on Tuesday. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your evening. We'll talk to you again 7 a.m. tomorrow morning.